Right, so we've got our basking sharks shown with the heat map, as I showed you how to do. So this is quite a nice output for your assignment. It's showing a kind of geographical distribution of your species by areas where, in this case, where you're most likely to see basking sharks based on the data over the last 16 years. So what we want to be able to do is output that for a nice format ready for you to put in your report. At the moment, though, we're working in WGS 84, which is the standard, lat long coordinate system, global coordinate system, which is quite handy. All of our data has been in that coordinate system. But what it does mean is, if you're looking at this, the UK does look a bit probably different from how you're used to seeing it. It looks a bit distorted. So for your output purposes, it might be nice to put it into a format where it looks a bit more like it does traditionally in the maps that we're used to seeing. So what I'm going to do for a minute is, in the project, I'm just going to go to properties, and I'm going to change the coordinate system for our location. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this because this is such a key thing of GIS, working out which coordinate systems you're in and making sure all your layers are the same one. We're in WGS 84. But what there are is variations on that system to avoid that distortion around the globe, okay? And that system is called the UTM system. So if I search for UTM down here, we've got coordinate reference system, and you can see all these different coordinate systems have come up here. Actually, I want to go UTM, so I'm staying within that one. And you can see there are lots because basically it zones the entire globe. The one that we want is 30 north. So let's just zoom up to that one. Scroll up to rather. If I click on it, you can see it illustrates down here the band where we're based. And you can see that centres around our part of the UK. Not so good for Ireland, but for our part of England and southwest and Scotland, it's covering the majority of it, so it'll be the least distorted. So I'm going to go with that one and make sure that's selected up there and go okay. You can see our map immediately changes, but hopefully you can see that the UK does look a bit more like you're used to seeing it on standard maps, but you might see some distortion coming around here in the Baltic and things. That's because the rest of the globe is going to look, if I zoom out, is going to look quite distorted now because we're centred on the UK. So I'll just zoom back into the UK there. What you'll also notice, I'm sure the heat map changes with your zoom, which is quite an interesting aspect. I did forget to mention that earlier. If you zoom into locations, it breaks down each time, kind of showing for that area which are the hotspots within each area. And it kind of simplifies it as you zoom out. I'll go back out to the UK. Right. It'll take a few minutes for that to re-coordinate itself. Okay. So I've got now my map looking a bit more standardized. So I'm going to go to the print layout and start that process. I'm going to call it Baskers. Okay, so we've got our print layout. The first thing I want to do is add my map. So that's this little square icon over here. Let's draw it out. Not looking so good at the minute. And this is one thing I need to remember to tell you, is probably to download a bit more bathymetry to make this look a bit better, because you can see the bit that I've downloaded isn't going to be ideal, really. I'm going to end up with a bit of white regions on my map. It's not the end of the world. Anyway, you can see it's not fitting in very nicely there, so I want to change that. If I drop down to this bit, move item content, okay, I can move my map around within the frame, and here you can also use your mouse to zoom in a bit. So I'm just going to zoom in to get it more how I want it. Looks a bit better, doesn't it? One of the things to look at over here in your properties panel, this should be up, okay? And if you select an item, you can go to item properties. So this is telling me map 1, that's what I've got selected, and it's telling me my scale up here. So you can actually change that. You can see it's 7 million about. So I might just change that to 6 million. What does that do? Okay, zoomed in a little bit more, but now it's a little bit too much. So let's try 6,500,000. That's a really handy thing to be in control of, because it means you can tinker with it a bit and get it how you want it exactly. I'm going to click back onto the move item and just make that a bit smaller. And as you can see then it's resized it, which is really annoying, but I can just go back into the scale and go to 6,500,000. Enter it again. Hopefully that should fix it. Okay. Right, so I've got it looking sort of how I want. You might tinker with it a little bit more. You could add your usual things. You've got your scale bar. So let's put that in. And again, if you've got that selected up here under item properties, you've got a scale bar now, map, and hopefully you've gone through this, but you can change it here where it says fixed width. If you increase that, if you want to make it a bit bigger or smaller, you can use that. That's the easiest way. And the resizing bit doesn't do anything with it there, but I can now move it about a bit, put it somewhere where it's going to be useful. So I've got 200 kilometers, which seems quite a nice unit to display. You could add a legend, and hopefully again you've gone through with Yvonne about that. So I've got legend, but actually right, so and I hope she's gone through as well with legend. We don't want all this on here, but if you go now, it's got legend in the main item properties because I've got that selected. You can turn off the auto update, and you can remove layers by highlighting them and just going minus to sort of like get rid of them. Okay, because it'll put all of the legends for all of the layers on your map and just get rid of the ones till you've got the ones that are relevant. However, what I would argue with this is I don't think the legend's going to be telling you that much. The figure caption is going to be something like, sightings, hotspots for basking sharks around the UK. And it's pretty obvious, isn't it? The measurements on the heat map aren't going to be anything that anybody's going to make any sense of anyway. So even if you had that up on your legend, I didn't want to do that. I'll go back up here to 1:1. That should bring it back. It's not going to be really particularly useful for anyone. So what I would say is, let's not bother with a legend. Okay, so I'm going to select it and just delete it again. What is nice though is to have like whereabouts in the world your map is coming from, and to do that we add what's called a grid. Okay, and I'm not sure if you've done that with Yvonne, but just to go over that again, it's here. So in your item properties now, I've got grids down here. So I click on that. There's nothing here, so I need to add one. Hit the plus and then select it and go to modify grid. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we've changed the coordinate system of the map. If I go back, when you're moving around, sorry, this is in the way for a minute. Down at the bottom of your map, it's showing the coordinate system. Can you see how it's in hundreds of thousands? So it's changed it from the degrees, the decimal degrees it was in previously when it was WGS 84. And that can cause a little bit of confusion when you come to this because it will put some weird coordinate system labels around it. So where it says grid type, I've got solid. What I want to use is not the map one. I want to use WGS 84. Okay, and then for example, now map units. So let's just go with 1 and 1 for degrees. And you can see it's drawn in that grid now. And this is degrees of longitude and latitude on your map. Probably a bit too busy. Let's change it to 5, even 10 degrees. Let's try it at 5. Okay, should be a bit less busy now. Right, I might need to move our scale bar in a minute. It's also very dark, so I'm just going to change the line style to a grey colour. So up here it's black, and I'm just going to sort of pick a grey off that just to make it a bit less nasty. And then go back up here under item properties, back to our grid default. So now it's grey. You can see it on there. I did notice, like when you made it grey, one useful thing under blend mode, if you make it darker, it makes the line in the darker areas become more apparent, which is quite cool. Anyway, but it's up to you. It's not important. Okay, so we've got our markers on there, but what we also want to display is the latitude and longitude. So we've got under here frame style. We can change that. You can have like fancy zebra frame, what I tend to have is exterior ticks because I'm just a bit boring like that. So it just sort of has a little neat mark like that. And then we go down to draw coordinates and check that. Okay, so you can see they've come up already now. We've got our longitude and latitude coordinates coming up. They're decimal. What makes it quite nice is if you add like whereabouts in the world it is, north or south, west or east. So now we've got our 5 degrees west, and so we're only 55 degrees north. We don't need them on every single axis, so let's just have them left. Got show all, so we don't need them on right. Let's go to disable. Top we can have show all, and bottom we don't need them, so let's go to disable. Okay, and then change something then. Under coordinate precision, you can see they've gone to 3 decimal places. We don't need that. But there are things you want to control with your maps. If you're dealing with a field somewhere in Cornwall, it's going to be a whole lot more detailed. You might want to use a different coordinate system just to show what's going on. Okay, so now we have got our map. I just clicked off it, so my item properties disappeared. I click back on it to come back. And if you click off it, you can see there's no frame bounding box around it. You might like that, I don't know. But I'm going to add in a frame there. Click back off. So now I've got a lovely map. I need to move my scale bar because it's upsetting me that it's going through those grid lines. So I'll move it underneath. I've got a lovely map there ready for export to be able to use in your file. So you can now go to layout and export as image or export as PDF, depending on what you like to use. I tend to use images. Ta-da!